What's up, guys? D-Rock 1992 here. Continuing on with my James Bond actor marathon on my About series. The next guy I'm going to be talking about is my favorite James Bond of all time. This one is pretty, not a lot of people probably have Timothy Dalton as their favorite James Bond. Many people may not even know that Timothy Dalton did play James Bond, but he did for 2 films. Uh, he is my favorite, definitely. Um, I've done so far Sean Connery, who I like. I don't. He's not my favorite. I don't hate him, but he's a good Bond. He made a good James Bond. George Lazenby. Like I said in the video about him, he did pretty good. I think he did a pretty solid job as Bond. David Niven, the movie was pretty weird. Let's just disregard that. Roger Moore, as James Bond, was a good James Bond, definitely. Maybe a bit of a step below Connery. And I think in my Bond countdown I had Moore ahead of Connery. But that list can change, definitely, depending on, if I watch the movies and I see a little something I didn't see of the Bond actor before, maybe that Bond actor comes up ahead of the other Bond actor. But anyway, getting into Timothy Dalton, he is my favorite James Bond because he's just very dramatic. He's a dramatic, forceful, violent James Bond. He's violent when he has to be. He's dramatic. Timothy Dalton actually has a stage record. He performed on stage a lot. Performed on, I don't know if he performed on Broadway or not, but he has a stage career. He had a stage career before he was selected as James Bond, and he wasn't a popular choice. When he was announced as James Bond in 1987, I think it was 86, something like that. I'll get to the Bond films afterwards, but each one. But yeah, he wasn't the popular choice. It's like a lot of people, a stage actor playing James Bond. That's probably what a lot of people thought. But, they don't give him a lot of credit. He did a good job, and he was the closest James Bond. Ironically, he's the closest James Bond to Ian Fleming's James Bond that he envisioned in his novels. That Ian Fleming drew up James Bond exactly, and then Timothy Dalton played him exactly like Ian Fleming's Bond, the closest to it of the 7 actors. And I think that really stands for something. I think that really not a lot of people know that, really. A lot of people think, that Dalton is one of the weak links of the James Bond era, but it's not true, in my opinion. And he only did 2 Bond films, but I think, obviously, he's just he's just my favorite James Bond ever, and he continues to be. And without further ado, I'm going to get into his film career. I am going to talk a little bit about films outside of Bond. Dalton hasn't had quite the career outside of Bond that other Bond actors have had. Sean Connery has had the best career outside of Bond. But Dalton's had a career, definitely. And his film debut in 1968 was actually, the film he debuted in, was actually a good film back in the day. It's a film called The Lion in Winter. And he played a king in the movie. I have watched parts of that movie before, and this is about King Henry I mean, English history, King Henry, or Richard the Lionhearted. Richard the Lionhearted, King Henry II, English history, definitely. And it had a lot of famous actors back in the day. It was, let me see here, Anthony Hopkins, a famous British actor. That was his film debut as well. Katharine Hepburn, Peter O'Toole, popular actors in the 60s, 50s, and all those kind of eras, popular golden era type actors. And that definitely is not a bad movie for Timothy Dalton to be in, and The Lion and Winter was a big success. One that I see here that looks interesting is 1971, and I actually have watched the movie, part of it, Mary, Queen of Scots, another English history type book, or type movie. It's about the Queen, Mary, Queen of Scots. Little bit of I'm not going to get too much into the history, but she was a queen that was beheaded. She was beheaded by her own cousin, basically, Queen Elizabeth I, popular queen in English history. So yeah. And he played a small role in that, a supporting role. Definitely. As you go down the list, 1980, there was a movie called Flash Gordon that came out, based on a comic book, I believe. And he played a supporting role in that movie. A reason, actually, I just thought of it. They have a Flash Gordon reference. They actually have the actor who played Flash Gordon in the Ted movie in 2012, and it was pretty funny, actually. I never watched that Flash Gordon movie, but Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane's characters in Flash Gordon, or in Ted, were fans of Flash Gordon. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun watching that particular scene there, even though I've never watched the movie. But Timothy Dalton had a supporting role in the movie. So that's why I thought I'd mention that, because of the Flash Gordon reference in Ted. And then he was selected as James Bond, like I said. His first Bond movie of the two was in 1987, and it was a movie called The Living Daylights. And that's my favorite Dalton movie overall. The Living Daylights, a lot of different parts in that movie that play well. There's like 2 different villains in the movie, 3 different villains. It may seem like a lot, but The Living Daylights definitely works in that. It definitely works for Bond, and it definitely is my favorite. And then in 1989, his final Bond appearance was License to Kill, which is, without a doubt, one of the most violent James Bond film ever. It got a PG... Actually, most of them got a PG-13 rating. Most of them had it anyway. But this movie was violent. And a very dark Bond. But that was exactly how Ian Fleming envisioned James Bond, as a dark type of character. And I think Dalton plays it excellently in this movie. It's dark because the movie involves drugs. A drug lord, and, the lengths he will go to make sure that his drug empire stays intact. And it's just a really good... I really like it, as well as just a little step below The Living Daylights. A little step, though. It, both of the Timothy Dalton movies were great. And then, not a lot of people know this, but Dalton and MGM or Eon Productions, they were close to making a third James Bond movie. I don't know if they had a title for it or not, but they were set to make a third film with Timothy Dalton in it. But the next Bond actor came into the equation, and I will talk about him in the next video. But anyway, life after Bond, not a real lot of movies that I've heard of on here that really... 1999, I find this interesting. 1999, there was a movie called Cleopatra, and he played Julius Caesar. He actually played Julius Caesar. I find that kind of interesting. Because I like that kind of history. I've read a lot about Julius Caesar and read a little bit about Cleopatra. I find it kind of interesting. He gets into a voiceover with, I don't know if it's a voiceover, Looney Tunes Back in Action. No, he plays, excuse me. He plays, he's just, the voice. Or he doesn't play a voice, he plays a character. But I just find it interesting he's in a Looney Tunes movie. An accomplished stage actor. And then the big surprise is that he was in another big budget film, Toy Story 3. He had a supporting role in Toy Story 3 as Mr. Pricklepants was his name. Basically the name of his character. And, the Toy Story movies, I hold them in high regard. They are great movies. The first two in particular, great movies in my childhood. And Toy Story 3, no different. I watched that once. I loved the movie. I really did. Almost made me cry at the end. But yeah, Dalton played Mr. Pricklepants in Toy Story 3. Another movie I've heard of that he starred in 2010 was The Tourist. That was with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp. I don't think the movie did particularly well. I've never watched it, but I don't think it did particularly well. He did some short films between 2011 and 2012. 3 of them reprising his role as Mr. Pricklepants. These are Toy Story shorts. And then he did a movie in 2012 called Secret of the Wings. Actually a Tinkerbell movie. Timothy Dalton playing in a Tinkerbell movie? That's unusual. I think he's taken kind of an unusual route. Actually not really unusual. A lot of older actors do get into voiceover work when they get older. I noticed that kind of. And that's great, recapturing a bit of their childhood in a way by starring in these kids' movies. Toy Story 3 is a movie for children and adults, but it is mostly for kids. And Mr. Playing Mr. Pricklepants in Toy Story 3, that's an accomplished actor right there. But anyway, that's pretty much it for film in particular. Now I get into television. He's been in a lot of miniseries in his career. I noticed that. A lot of miniseries, including the miniseries Scarlet. He plays Rhett Butler, and for those of you who don't know, Rhett Butler was a famous character in the 1939 classic Gone with the Wind, which is a really good movie. I just actually recently watched the entire movie. Took me about 5 hours, but I did finish it. I did watch the movie. And this is kind of a sequel. This mini-series is kind of a sequel to that Gone with the Wind movie from 1939. And they did it all the way in 1994. So, definitely that, I find that kind of interesting. He appeared in some episodes of Doctor Who. He appeared in some episodes of the TV show Chuck. And some TV specials about, reprising his role as Mr. Pricklepants in some of the TV specials. Like I said, he was a big stage actor. He played a lot of Shakespeare, Merchant of Venice, Richard III, Macbeth, King Lear, Henry V, Romeo and Juliet he played. Taming of the Shrew is another Shakespeare play. So, that's it, pretty much. I mean, an accomplished stage actor, accomplished television actor, and a film actor. With his most success coming in films, obviously. Again, best Bond in my eyes is Timothy Dalton. And that's it for my video on Timothy Dalton. D-Rock 1992, out.